This weekend on the Rochester Press Box from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door restaurant.
I'm Alex Zapesochny, and I'll tell you why the Sochi Olympics may be just as bad as predicted.
And I'm John Ditullio. What a difference a year makes for one certain Syracuse basketball player.
I'm Mike Catalana. I don't know who's going to win next year's Super Bowl, but I'll tell you why it won't be the Seahawks.
And I'm Bill Pucko. It isn't any fun to finish second, but there's no dishonor in it either. Join us this weekend on the Rochester Press Box. The Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Salvatore's at the Garage Door on 49 Ridge Road East in Irondequoit. Rochester's choice winner for Best Pizzeria, featuring Wacky Wing Wednesday, John Ditullio Trivia on Thursday, and the Super Slice. It's as big as your head. Games are always on at the Garage Door, home to the Rochester Press Box. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Rochester Press Box here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door restaurant, East Ridge Road in Irondequoit. I'm Bill Pucko, joined always by WHTK Sports Director John Ditullio.
Billy, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Mike Catalana back from the Super Bowl, 13 WHAM News and Fox Rochester Sports
Good to be
Director.
home.
Alex Zapesochny, the president of iCardiac Startup Insider, a program that you do with us here at Classy Wolf, and we like to refer to you as a citizen of the world. Which is the reason we bring you in here, Alex, because look, you were born in St. Petersburg, Russia. We're headed into Sochi and the Olympic Games. We hear nothing but bad stuff about this place. I mean, there's, you know, the security problems, the water is bad, the hotel rooms are too small. Sochi's a resort area in a pretty affluent part of Russia. What's going on there? Why is this so negative?
Well, I would say as somebody who, you're right, was born in Russia, spent the first 7 years there, have studied it quite a bit, I actually believe pretty much every single bad story that's come out. I think there's probably truth to just about all of them, including the fact that they're rounding up and killing stray dogs, that they've basically forcibly moved thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of citizens around Sochi in order to lay the groundwork for these games. And in my opinion, I really think that while I very much believe in the Olympic ideal, to me the Olympic ideal is you don't want to boycott unless, you know, in very rare circumstances. You want everybody to go out there and play each other, but there should be really a higher standard for who is allowed to actually host the games and put themselves out onto the world stage. And to me, a country like Putin, yeah, the Berlin Wall fell, but it's just as bad, and in some cases worse than it was many years ago. This is a government that basically, opposing political leaders, they jailed them. They killed journalists, probably not sports journalists, but other kinds of journalists. They are one of the worst violators of human rights, including basically criminalizing the gay community lately. And every year it gets worse and worse in terms of democracy. And now we're allowing them to spend $50 billion to put on a game. Now, in my opinion, this is one of those games where it's a higher chance than in the past that something really terrible will happen. Because one of the things you should know about Russia is that despite the fact that they spend $50 billion, it is not the most, the best person that gets the job. It's the person with the best connections, etc. So this is a game where if there's something shoddy in terms of the infrastructure or perhaps the security work, this is the game where that'll happen.
I thought you'd be defending Sochi.
No, are you kidding? Defending?
It was like, but the security forces that are there for the Olympic Games all represent almost half the population of Sochi in a non-Olympic year. I would think this would be the safest place on earth.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, first of all, if it can happen in Atlanta in '96, it can certainly happen there. Russia has made deservedly a lot of enemies over the years, and I think many of them are going to do whatever they can. Obviously, hopefully, nothing happens, and odds are nothing will happen. But I think there's a higher likelihood here, and also a higher likelihood of all sorts of other things, that the rooms won't be ready, that the facilities will be substandard. Something terrible will come out of this Olympics.
Would you guys want that assignment?
No. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going. If I'm a single guy, perhaps. Married with a kid, I'm sorry, I ain't going. I'm not going. It's close to a hotbed of terrorism. Somebody lined their pockets. ABC News had a story where somebody linked to organized crime helped push this whole bid through.
A heroin dealer.
A heroin dealer lined his pockets, $51 billion, and maybe the worst infrastructure we've ever seen for the Olympics.
How'd they get it?
They got it because the International Olympic Committee makes John's favorite group, the NCAA, look like the most pure group in the world.
Yeah.
Can I say this without sounding on it? I don't like the Olympics. I don't like what it's become. I don't like this show. I don't like what's happened to the athletes. There are still a few good, pure athletic stories at the Olympics. A few. The rest of it's about all the garbage that goes on, including the corruption to get the games and spend all this money in a country that could use that money spent in much better ways than to make Vladimir Putin seem like a better guy than he is. I think hopefully it's not a real disaster, it's just a Russian disaster, not a worldwide.
The Winter Games begin, bring them on. The Winter Games begin this week. What to take away from the Super Bowl when we return?
I've been being asked about my legacy since I was about 25 years old, which I'm not sure you can have a legacy when you're 25 years old or even 37. I thought you had to be like 70 to have a legacy. So I'm not 100% sure what the word even means. I'm still in the middle of my career. Let me rephrase that. I'm down the home stretch of my career, but I'm still in it.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door Restaurant. Rochester Lancer schedules, they will play Sunday, 3 o'clock, a game against Milwaukee. They only have 3 home games left, and they are home again next Saturday when they'll take on Syracuse. Mike, you're just back from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
New York City, what do we take from the game?
You know, I think the game itself was like an old school Super Bowl, a blowout, because we kind of got used to them being great games, and coming down right to the end, we got spoiled. Go back a decade plus, and it seemed like every year we had a game kind of like we did on Sunday. The game itself, I thought of all the Super Bowls I've been to, the crowd was the most engaged in any one I've ever been to, especially that first half, which surprised me a little bit, with it being Seattle and Denver, fans having to travel so far. You think about the big money. Thought the crowd was great. I thought New York handled it great. They got really, really lucky with the weather on the day of the Super Bowl, because the next day it was a disaster.
Next day and either weekend bookending it
would have been terrible.
Bad.
But it's the NFL. They live right. Somehow it always works for them. I thought New York City did great, but honestly, most of the time, unless you were in Times Square, you weren't really aware of the Super Bowl. It's New York. There's crowds. There's people. There were those times when it was like that. I liked it, but I'd like it to be in New Orleans or San Diego or Miami in the future.
Well, I'm glad the weather. I mean, listen, the NFL is the Teflon league. They're the only league that can get away with having a Super Bowl in a northern city and have no snow and no bad weather. But they had a bad game. What I take away from it is that Seattle says, this is what we are. We're going to do this. And Denver kind of took that same arrogant stance. According to Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and Dan Quinn, they knew exactly where Peyton Manning was going with the ball. He tipped off everything. They knew the routes the receivers are going to run. So what I take away is that it's nice to know that if you have a good defense, or a great defense in this case, you can still win a championship.
Yeah, what do you think, Alex?
Well, so I'm watching the very beginning, and there's Joe Namath wearing this Zsa Zsa Gabor-like coat and doesn't know how to flip the coin. And I think, wow, I can't believe a legendary quarterback is embarrassing himself like this on television. And then from the very first play, I really couldn't believe what I was watching. And I actually think
fit right in.
Well, and I think the conventional wisdom that this is not going to hurt Peyton Manning's legacy, it's just a game people forget. I actually think that's really wrong. I think that unless he finds a way in the next year or two, the last years of his career, to basically pull a John Elway and get at least one more Super Bowl, I think people are going to look at him and say, no, there's no way he belongs with Tom Brady or Joe Montana, that he's kind of closer to a Favre or a Marino. I think that, well, at least a Marino. So I
would have been Favre ahead of him for a variety of reasons. But
he's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah,
he's not the all-time greatest.
Was there something we didn't see, and you having been there, that you kind of come back with an impression that you can share with us?
From the game itself?
Well, the event itself.
Yeah, no, I think it was handled really well. I think the fans enjoyed themselves as much as you can. I think the in-stadium experience was great.
Why did that happen? Why is that different from Pasadena, New Orleans?
I think, I will say this, I think New York knows how to handle events. I really do. And I think in the stadium, they handled it. They didn't overreact to little things in there. People moved pretty freely. I thought it was that type of event. Quick other things. Renee Fleming was awesome in the national anthem, did Rochester proud. I got to tell you, I thought Bruno Mars was fantastic. I thought he was great. I think it played really well in the stadium, and then from what people told me, played well on TV too. And I think a lot of people were iffy on him. I think for a halftime show, he did great.
Very good.
Your buddy Keith Olbermann referred to him as a Michael Jackson impersonator.
Who's Keith Olbermann impersonating?
Thinks he's Howard Cosell.
Yeah. Like it or not, when we return. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door Restaurant. Live music every Friday night. We have Wacky Wings Wednesday, good specials on Wednesday, and come fall, John will be back doing trivia here.
Thursday night, it's big A++ sports trivia, let me tell you.
Yeah, enough to like promote several months in advance.
Sure.
Like it or not, Alex, MMA legalization, you're a big fan.
I'm a fan, and I do like it. I especially like the fact that the charge is being led by Majority Assemblyman Joe Morelli, who represents part of Monroe County. And last year, Connecticut became the 49th state to actually legalize, which leaves just single little New York not to have done it. And the reason they haven't done it really doesn't even have much to do with the merits of the sport, because if you look at the deadliness level, well, auto racing, horseback riding, or horse racing are deadlier. Actually, from just a pure danger perspective, recreational sports, actually fishing is considered the most dangerous one because there's like a six-pack and a lot of water, and that oftentimes isn't good. And the reasons that they're against it, though, is because the unions have some issue with the UFC that's the main proponent, and so the people here just kind of want to be helpful to them and in allegiance with them. But the truth is, we live in a free country, and if people want to do this, it's no more dangerous than boxing. It should be allowed. We should be the 50th state that allows it. There's even some economic benefits, and I would argue that's better even from a moral standpoint than putting a bunch of casinos in the middle of Rochester.
Does this have to happen soon?
It's very possible that they'll vote on it very soon, because Cuomo has actually said that if he thinks there's an economic benefit, that he'll do it, because that's his key. And they've actually shown, according to statistics, that there is at least $130+ million in benefit to the state.
Quickly, I know you love this. Between that and legalized gambling on sporting events, which would you rather see?
Well, legalized gambling, honestly, for me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to place a bet in my hometown. Downtown Rochester, I should be able to place a bet.
Funny how we figure out some things are okay and some things aren't. Like it or not, John, I'm going to make sure I get this right, John. The Buffalo Franchise Preservation Fund.
Hey, it's a pipe dream. They're trying to take the model from the Packers. It's an organization that wants to, between $100 and $170 million to give to the next owner.
Just raise it from
you
people
guarantee
like us.
You're keeping the team here. Here's your money. You do what you got to do, in terms of infrastructure, and do it in terms of player signings. If they can pull it off, if they can find a bunch of fans and just hand over money. Because every time Green Bay wants to do a project, they just ask their shareholders. And you probably would get a certificate saying you paid to the Buffalo Lions Fund, and people would love to put that in their man cave. It may be a pipe dream. I think the Bills have a better chance of getting a new stadium than getting the between $100 and $170 million.
Is this an indication, you think, that fans are really afraid of this coming up?
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason to be afraid, because you don't know. It's the uncertainty that's out there. But I got to tell you, I don't see franchises jumping around and moving that quickly. I still think LA is the one that you got to worry about. It's not Toronto anymore. But I think this does send a signal a little bit, not just if it were to come about, not just there, but even to the politicians of how strongly everybody feels.
Cool. Like it or not, National Signing Day and all the attention we focus on it.
Or is this just Alabama recruiting day? Isn't that what this is now? They already signed the top 5. This is big. I think what it has really shown is the conferences and the schools with the big money that spend on the big facilities, the leagues that just spend and spend and spend that way, are the ones that are getting the top players. Doesn't always mean they'll be the best teams amongst each other, but it's awful tough to break into that now. Like it used to be, maybe somebody sneaks in there. It's not anymore. You see who the top ones are, the SEC. Big Ten, it's basically Ohio State way ahead of everybody.
Is covering this a little icky? I mean, these kids fresh
I'm a
out of high
hypocrite.
school.
I admit it. I hate it when I see a kid today, he pulls out a hat, he's going to so-and-so's school, but I love it. I mean, it's so bad I watch it, but I hate it that these kids who've done nothing, and we're out there exposing them, 18 years old, and we're treating them as if they're,
I hate
the
the
future
double
of our
hat
universities.
thing.
But I'm a hypocrite because I love it, and I talk about it all week on my show. It has become the NFL draft.
With high school kids.
With high school kids, basically.
Alrighty. Unfinished business when we return. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, here from Salvatore's at the Garage Door Restaurant. Unfinished business. John.
All right, Billy, thanks. You know, what a difference a year makes. A year ago, Trevor Cooney was the punchline, if you were a Syracuse basketball fan. All SU fans, including myself, recall his off-balance crazy shot against Michigan in the Final Four. Many questioned Jim Boeheim, why was Cooney with the ball? Same circumstance, if that should arise this year at the Final Four, I don't got a problem if number 10 is taken the game-winning shot. What a difference a year makes. A kid who averaged just over 3 points a game a year ago is now averaging over 14 points per game. He's become one of the best shooters in the country from three-point land, shooting over 44%. It's all about confidence. If you got confidence, as I tell my daughter when I was told, you can do just about anything. Boy, does Trevor Cooney have confidence. Now you can say he's part of the big three at Syracuse when you think Tyler Ennis, C.J. Fair, and Trevor Cooney. It would help if some of the national media members would get his name right. It's Trevor Cooney, who's a great player for Syracuse.
Yeah, you know, they're walking a thin line, but it seems like every game somebody steps up.
33 points this past week against Notre Dame. He is the Andy Routen / Jerry McNamara. He's the sharpshooter that Syracuse needs if they're going to get back to the Final Four.
They lose that game without him. Alex?
Thank you, Bill. Last Sunday, the Rochester area native that was supposed to be making a lot of news was Renee Fleming, and she obviously did a wonderful job. But instead, we heard that morning that Fairport native Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away that day. It's a tragic loss. He was a very gifted actor. For those who actually who are both sports fans and Philip Seymour Hoffman fans, there were actually 2 movies that had some sort of sports theme that you can watch to really get a sense as to how versatile he was. In one case, he played Art Howe, kind of the backwards manager who was against sabermetrics and was really the foil to Brad Pitt's character in Moneyball. A terrific movie and a great one for any baseball fan in particular. And if you want to do something much funnier, go to YouTube, look up Along Came Polly and the words "Let It Rain." And in that particular segment, you get the comedic side about Philip Seymour Hoffman. And anybody who's ever played a pickup game of basketball will recognize this character that he plays so perfectly. The person who thinks he can shoot and throws nothing but bricks. Obviously, it's a tragedy. Nothing can erase that. But at least we have some wonderful memories of Philip Seymour Hoffman. And thank you what you did for Rochester.
Yeah, really. We're all kind of proud to have had him in our midst. Michael?
Yeah, so I get back from the Super Bowl and I see the Seahawks dominate like no team we've seen, at least in the last decade more. And the first word I start hearing is dynasty and next year. I'm going to tell you right now, the Seahawks are not winning the championship next year. I think they're great. I think they're young. I think they have everything going for them. I'll repeat it. They're not going to win next year. As great as they were, as much as they dominated Denver at the end of that game, they were a tipped Richard Sherman pass away from losing at home in the playoff game to San Francisco. Chasing them are the Niners. Watch out for the Cardinals next year if they could keep their quarterback from throwing picks. The Rams have a beast of a defense if they can make plays, and there are other teams in the NFC that are going to challenge them. Everything went really well for them this past year, and they'll be good. They'll be right up there with everybody next year, but it is so difficult to win and have everything go your way year after year in the NFL. They'll be good, but I'm going to say it now. They're not winning the championship. Too many challengers, too many different things happen. I don't know who it's going to be next year, but it won't be the Seahawks.
The NFL socialism is the biggest threat, right? Everybody doing it.
Everybody including the Bills. I guess they're still part of that.
But I kind of take the other side, though. Vince Lombardi was quoted as saying, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Grantland Rice, who was a sports writer, ironically, said, you know, it's not how you play the game. It isn't whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Because he would never survive in this era of anti-social media. And you guys can use that, by the way. I think I coined that phrase, anti-social media.
That's good.
But correct me if I'm wrong. The Denver Broncos got to the Super Bowl. There were 30 other teams that would have liked to have been them. Correct me if I'm wrong, by winning conference championships in the regular seasons back-to-back, there were 31 teams that didn't do that. And Peyton Manning had the greatest year that a quarterback maybe ever had, certainly among this year, better than Russell Wilson, better even than E.J. Manuel. Lombardi's real quote was that, you know, winning isn't everything. The will to win is the only thing. That kind of fits, I think. It isn't any fun to finish second, especially the way the Denver Broncos did, but it's not a dishonor either. But thank you guys very much. John, Mike, Alex. We take the program here, the Rochester Press Box at Salvatore's every week at 12:30. We invite you to come down, have lunch with us, watch the show. We appreciate your watching, and we'll see you next week.